Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the biology speaker series. And today we have our guest speaker, which is Sonia Rivera. Sonia is native to the Rio Grande Valley, and she has a bachelor's degree of science in rehabilitative services and a master's of education degree in counseling and guidance from UT Pan Am. She is licensed professional counselor in the state of Texas and nationally certified rehabilitation counselor. She has worked as a counselor for South Texas College, so we have one of our own here. She has worked in the community providing social services to individuals with disability and has 23 years of experience as a counselor. So thank you so much, Sonia, for joining us. I leave the floor to you.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me in our department. And so I will be covering a topic which is called stress management. And so I will be giving you information. If you have questions, feel free to ask them. And at the end of my presentation, I'll be happy to answer those. And you can enter your questions in the chat. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about me. Um, uh, so I do have a bachelor degree in rehabilitative services and and also a master's of education in counseling and guidance. And I'm a licensed professional counselor and a certified rehabilitation counselor. And I wanted to give you a little bit of background on my work experience. So after I finished my bachelor's degree, I worked for the Valley Association for Independent Living, which is a nonprofit organization which helps people with disabilities to live more independently. And so I worked there from August of 1993, and I'm dating myself, so it's okay. And so I worked there from August of 93 to June of 1999. And so after that, I went to a partial hospitalization program, which was called NISPA Counseling Center. And so I worked there just a few months from June of 99 to February of 2000. And so what I did there was I helped um, persons uh, who are who were over 65 who were on the verge of being hospitalized. So they needed very intense counseling services. So that's what I did there. And then in February of 2000 up to now, I've been working for South Texas College. So when I first started, things were very different. 21 years ago, it was South Texas Community College, and there were not as many buildings or students as there is now. It was really different. Okay, so I'd like to talk to you next about our counseling and student accessibility services. This is the department that I work in. And so, what our staff does is we help students achieve success through the following services. So, we provide students with academic counseling, career and mental health counseling. We also provide services to students with disabilities, and we provide assistance to vulnerable populations. And so we are able to communicate through Microsoft Teams, which is it's an app that you can get on your computer, your phone, your electronic device. And so we can meet via video chat or audio chat. Also, we are available to receive messages during the office hours of 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. And then if at any time students would like to make an appointment, they can send us an email to counseling@southtexascollege.edu, or they can call us at 956-872-2173, and they can leave us a voice message. So Teams is not for crisis or emergency. It's, like I said, you can download it to your electronic device. And also we're available to connect through our STC email. And actually you would need to connect to Teams using your STC email. And in case you would have problems connecting, or if you would have problems with Teams, you could call the help desk at 872-2111. And so next I wanted to tell you about our mental health and personal growth workshops. So these are workshops that we offer every semester, fall, spring, summer. And so that's the link in order to join. And you can get this information off of our website as well. You can also email us at counseling@southtexascollege.edu, or call us at our main number at 872-2173 if you have questions about our workshop or would like to get information about, if you have any questions as to how to attend. So I also wanted to tell you about another program that we have, which is Wellness Wednesdays. And so every Wednesday, we are available to provide information on different topics, which promote wellness. That's what our goal is to do. And so it's from 12 to 1, and it's open to all of our students, faculty, and staff members as well. And so also I wanted to tell you about a support group that we have available for students. And it's on Thursdays at 2. And if you'd like more information, you can call our main number, the 872-2173, or you can send us an email at counseling@southtexascollege.edu. Okay, so since this workshop is on stress management, I wanted to first start out with a scale, like an assessment tool to help you determine how you're dealing with stress. If you feel like, after you do this assessment, then it'll help you gauge as to how you're doing as far as how you're dealing with the stress in your life. So basically this is a perceived stress scale. That's what it's called, the perceived stress scale. And it's an assessment instrument. It originally was developed in 1983, and it remains a popular choice for helping individuals understand how different situations affect our feelings and our perceived stress. The questions in the scale ask about your feelings and thoughts during the last month. In each case, you will be asked to indicate how often you felt or thought a certain way. Although some of the questions are similar, there are differences between them, and you should treat each one as a separate question. The best approach is to answer fairly quickly. That is, don't try to count up the number of times you felt a particular way. Rather, indicate the alternative that seems like a most reasonable estimate. So the first question would be, and so I would ask that you take out a pen and paper, and that way you can answer these questions. And so the first question is, in the last month, how often have you been upset because of something that happened unexpectedly? And so for each question, you're going to choose from the following alternatives. 0 is never, 1 is almost never, 2 is sometimes, 3 is fairly often, and 4 is very often. So then question 2 is, in the last month, how often have you felt that you were unable to control the important things in your life? And again, you can rate that from 0 to 4 based on your experience. So the third question is, in the last month, how often have you felt nervous and stressed? Number 4 would be, in the last month, how often have you felt confident about your ability to handle your personal problems? So number 5 is, in the last month, how often have you felt that things were going your way? And number 6 is, in the last month, how often have you found that you could not cope with all the things that you had to do? Number 7 would be, in the last month, how often have you been able to control irritations in your life? And number 8 is, in the last month, how often have you felt that you were on top of things? Number 9 is, in the last month, how often have you been angered because of the things that happened to you that were outside of your control? Number 10 is, in the last month, how often have you felt difficulties were piling up so high that you could not overcome them? So the next slide talks about how to figure out your score. So you can determine your score by following these directions. So first you reverse your scores for questions 4, 5, 7, and 8. On these 4 questions, change the scores like this. 0 equals 4, 1 equals 3, 2 equals 2, 3 equals 1, and 4 equals 0. So now you add up your scores for each item to get a total, and that'll give you your total score. So individual scores on the scale can range from 0 to 40, with higher scores indicating higher perceived stress. So scores ranging from 0 to 13 would be considered low stress, and scores ranging from 14 through 26 would be considered moderate stress. Scores ranging from 27 to 40 would be considered high perceived stress. So this perceived stress scale is interesting and important because your perception of what is happening in your life is most important. And also it helps you consider the idea that 2 individuals could have the same exact events and experience that they're experiencing in their lives for the past month. And so depending on their perception of these events, their total score could be put in one of those individuals in the low stress category, and the total score could be in the second person, could put the second person in the high stress category. So it really is explaining that 2 different people could be going through the same thing, but then the way they perceive stress or they perceive their situation is how they're dealing with stress and how they're feeling about stress in their lives. Okay, so the next slide talks about what is stress. It's a definition of stress. So, stress is a state of mental or emotional tension or strain resulting from very demanding or adverse circumstances. Stress can be internal. For example, thoughts and feelings can pop into your head. They can be unrealistic expectations, uncertainties, and apprehension. They can cause apprehension. Stress can also be external. They can come from positive or negative events. And so sometimes we don't think about like how positive events can cause us stress. Like, for example, marriage or birth of a child or just some type of change in your life can cause stress, even though it is positive, even though it's a positive event. So the next slide talks about how stress affects your body. It's the biology of stress. So stress, either physiological, biological, or psychological, is a person's response to a stressor such as an environmental condition. It is the body's way of reacting to a condition such as a threat, challenge, or physical and psychological barriers. When a stressor is perceived and interpreted, the the stress response system starts a cascade of biological events. And so the next slide talks about how stress activates the fight or flight response. And this is through the sympathetic nervous system, which dictates energy to more relevant body systems. Stress can cause your body to release hormones, including adrenaline and cortisol, that surge throughout the body. Research has shown that when a person appraises a situation as being stressful, the brain releases the hormone adrenaline. So, this hormone increases a person's heart rate, sweating, blood pressure, and breathing rate. And that illustration right there shows you how pretty much how it affects a person's body. So the next slide it continues to talk about the biology of stress. So after perceiving a stressor, the brain structure associated with emotional reactions, such as fear, responds to stress by secreting a cascade of hormones that ultimately release the hormone corticosteroid. Cortisol, the stress hormone, is sent through the blood and influences many bodily functions such as metabolic, psychological, and immunological functions. Stress hormones carry a message that tells cells in the body what they need to do. But something has to receive that message before the orders contained in the message can be carried out. And so that illustration also shows you how the stress affects the brain and the body and how hormones are released, like that system that they follow. And so the next slide explains that the message receivers in this case are the stress hormone receptors. So when cortisol attaches to its receptors, it can then interact with other cells to get their job done. Since cortisol is needed for many biological functions, It has receptors almost everywhere in the body, including the brain. An increase of cortisol correlates to the symptoms of stress, which include providing energy to muscles, pupils dilating, sweating, increasing heart rate, and increasing respiratory rate, and even fainting. So, also, I wanted to talk about stress during this time. I know that it's a very stressful time. I think for all of us, it's something new that we've never been through. This pandemic. Very it's been very difficult. So, I'm very glad to provide this information and to try to help everyone to deal with stress. So, during this time, we've been expected to play many roles. We've many times been an employee, um, or a teacher to our kids who are homeschooled, or who've had to be doing their work from home. We also sometimes are a spouse or girl and boyfriend, and then there's also the fear of the unknown, which is um, what causes stress during this time. So I wanted to provide some information about, from the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, how the stress that the pandemic has caused people. So, fear and anxiety about a new disease and what can happen can be overwhelming in adults and children. Public health recommendations such as social distancing can make people feel isolated and lonely and can increase anxiety and stress. Um, However, of course, as we know, these actions are necessary to reduce the spread of COVID-19. So the CDC has also stated that people who may respond strongly to the stress of this crisis, such as this pandemic, include people who are at a higher risk of severe illness for COVID-19. For example, people who are older or people of any age with an underlying medical condition. Um, Children and teens also may be experiencing stress during this time. People who care for loved ones or family members. Um, Also, frontline workers such as healthcare providers and first responders may be going through stress at this time as well. Essential workers who work in the food industry also may be going through stress. And people who have existing mental health conditions, this stress during this time may exacerbate those symptoms they're experiencing. And people who use substances or have a substance use disorder also may be going through stress at this time. People who have lost their jobs or had their work hours reduced, or have had other major changes to their employment may be going through stress. People who have disabilities or developmental delays may be going through stress during this time as well. People who are socially isolated from others, including people who live alone, and people in rural areas, may be going through stress as well. People in some racial and ethnic minority groups may be feeling stress during this time. People who do not have access to information in their primary language may be experiencing stress. People who are homeless, or people who live in group settings may also be going through stress at this time. And so the next slide talks about how stress can affect you. And so stress can cause an acceleration of your heart and lungs, an inhibition of stomach and upper intestinal action, which can disrupt digestion. Stress can also cause or influence the course of psychological conditions such as depression, anxiety, personality disorders. So the next slide talks about the long-term effects of stress. So stress can lead to cardiovascular disease, high blood pressure, abnormal heart rhythms, heart attacks, and strokes. Stress can alter memory functions, reward and immune functions, metabolism, and susceptibility to diseases. So, long term effects of stress are also obesity and eating disorders. It can lead to that, and to sexual dysfunction. The long term effects of stress can also lead to skin and hair problems and gastrointestinal issues. So, in the next slide, I wanted to talk about um, tips to manage stress. So, a lot of times it's helpful to keep a positive attitude, to accept that there are things that you cannot control, to be assertive, not aggressive, to learn and practice relaxation techniques such as meditation, progressive muscle relaxation. And those are two techniques that I'm going to cover later in my presentation. I'm going to review these exercises with you. And then also yoga and Tai Chi are also helpful to help you manage stress, and exercising regularly as well. And other stress management tips would be to eat healthy, well balanced meals, to manage time effectively, to set limits and learn to say no to requests that would cause you stress, to make time for hobbies, interests, and relaxation, to get enough rest and sleep, and to seek out social support. So, the next slide talks about managing stress when taking exams. And so, I wanted to give this information to students because I know that's something that hopefully can help you out. So sometimes when you're feeling stressed, you just yell stop if you need to clear your mind. You stop those negative thoughts that you're having and get your mind off of worrying if you feel overwhelmed. You visualize success and you focus on the task at hand. And praising yourself also is very helpful for managing stress when taking exams. So, in the next slide, I wanted to talk about how changing negative thoughts can help manage the stress of taking exams. And so, this is another technique to hopefully help you as far as managing the stress. So, cognitive behavior therapy has been I mean, proven to help manage the stress of test anxiety. For example, when a person starts to think negative thoughts, cognitive behavior therapy um, recommends that you replace these thoughts with more positive ones. And an example would be a student might be worrying about doing poorly on an exam and think that they are going to fail. And so, with cognitive behavioral therapy, it's recommended that they should think more positive and tell themselves that he or she is going to know the answers to this test and successfully pass it. Thinking negatively can cause a person to develop anxiety and stress. So, that's another tip to help students as far as taking exams. So the next slide talks about also, how anxiety resides in the thought process and how that can lead to stress, and looking at how a person thinks about tests influences how they experience them. So becoming aware of ineffective thought patterns is helpful to manage the stress of test taking, and to learn to modify those thoughts so that they're more realistic and effective is helpful to deal with the stress. So the next slide talks about, gives more tips as far as reducing the stress of test taking. So you should face your fear in case you're experiencing that, and accept the fact that you may have a problem if you are having test anxiety. And also, it's recommended that you become task oriented and you give total attention to the test that you're taking. It's also recommended that you engage in positive self talk and, like we said earlier, replace negative thoughts with more positive ones. And also, it's recommended that you improve the way you prepare for a test to help you deal with the stress of taking exams. Also, learn to recognize signals that you are becoming stressed and anxious, and practice relaxation exercises. And so, like I said, I'll be covering those through later in my presentation. It's also recommended that you dress comfortably for tests and also arrive on time at the test site and develop a test day tradition. And another tip that's given as far as managing the stress of test taking is you can use a 5-day study plan to help you organize your materials and give yourself time to review for a major test. This plan can help you reduce tendencies to procrastinate, cram, or suffer test anxiety. So it's also recommended that you set specific goals, that you set a specific target date and time, and you identify steps and plan a reward for yourself once you're done with your exam. So the next slide talks or gives you more tips to reduce the stress of test taking. Learning how to study effectively is helpful. With this, you'll feel more relaxed if you systematically study and practice the material that will be on the exam that you're going to take. Also, studying early and in similar places is helpful. It's better to study over time rather than cramming studying all at once. And spending your time studying in the same or similar places, where you take your where you studying in the same or similar places can help you recall information as well, like creating a routine. The next slide also talks about tips to reduce the stress of test taking. It's recommended that you establish a consistent pre-test routine. Learn what works for you and follow the same steps each time you get ready to take a test. Also, talk to your instructor, make sure you understand what is going to be on each test and how to prepare. And let your instructor know if you feel anxious when you're going to take a test. So communication with your instructor is very important. Other tips to help reduce the stress of test taking, would be getting exercise. Regular aerobic exercise also helps relieve the tension of the day on your test day, and getting plenty of sleep helps as well. Um, you need a good night's sleep for optimal work performance. So the next slide that I wanted to review with you talks about the biology of relaxing. And so I wanted to just explain to you how your body is affected when you are relaxed. Since we talked about the biology of stress, now let's talk about the biology of relaxing. So when the stress response is activated, it's important to get it back to its baseline. So learning to relax can play a tremendous difference in alleviating stress. So this can be achieved by activating the parasympathetic nervous system of the autonomic nervous system to elicit the relaxation response. This is a physical state of deep rest that changes the physical and emotional responses to stress. This relaxation response works in the opposite way that the fight or flight response works. It lowers stress hormone levels and lowers blood pressure as well. Okay, so now I want to cover it's a stress management technique which is called progressive muscle relaxation. So, this is a deep relaxation technique based on the practice of tensing one muscle group at a time, followed by relaxing these muscle groups. And so, this technique is used to manage stress, anxiety, relieve insomnia, and reduce chronic pain. So, with this exercise, I'm going to ask that you find a quiet place to relax, turn off your phone, and if you can, dim the lights in the room that you're in. So, I'll give you a couple of minutes to do that. So, next, I'm going to ask that you sit down in a comfortable position, make sure that you're comfortable, and let your hands rest on your lap and close your eyes. So it's really best if you can close your eyes during this exercise. I think it'll help you relax. So really, your job is to relax, and I will guide you through the process. My job is to help you to get through that process of relaxing. So next, I'm going to ask that you take a deep breath in through your nose and hold this breath for a moment. Then exhale through your mouth. Allow your breath to carry away all your stress and tension as the air flows out of your lungs. So during this relaxation exercise, I will ask that you tense various muscles in your body. So you're going to tense and relax the different muscle groups that I'm going to go over with you. So first of all, I'm going to ask you to take a deep breath. And as you're doing this, I'm going to ask you to tense the muscles in the soles of your feet and hold this for 5 seconds. And then release. And we can do this again. Take a deep breath, tense the muscles in the soles of your feet, and hold this for 5 seconds. And relax. Now let's focus on your lower legs. Take another deep breath. Point your toes up to your knees and tighten these muscles. Hold this for 5 seconds. Then relax. Again, let's take a deep breath. Point your toes up to your knees and tighten these muscles and hold for 5 seconds and then relax. Now let's focus on the front of your thighs. Push your heels down to the floor and hold this for 5 seconds. And then relax. Again, push your heels down to the floor and hold this for 5 seconds. And then relax. Next, let's focus on your stomach muscles. Take another deep breath and tighten the muscles in your stomach. Hold this for 5 seconds. Then relax. Now let's focus on the muscles in your back. So go ahead and take another deep breath. Tighten these muscles and hold this for 5 seconds. And then release. Again, breathe in, tighten the muscles in your back. Hold this for 5 seconds. And then release. Next, let's focus on your shoulders and neck muscles. Pull your shoulders up towards your ears and hold this for 5 seconds. And release. Again, pull your shoulders up towards your ears and hold this for 5 seconds. And then release. Now let's focus on the muscles in your arms and hands. Raise your wrists towards your shoulders and tighten the muscles in your upper arms. And hold this for 5 seconds. And then release. Again, raise your wrists towards your shoulders and tighten the muscles in your upper arms and hold this for 5 seconds. And then release. Now let's focus on the muscles in your forearms. Curl your hands inwards and hold for 5 seconds. And then release. Again, curl your hands inward and hold for 5 seconds. And then release. Go ahead and take a deep breath and tighten and clench your fists and hold this for 5 seconds. And then release. Again, clench your fists and hold this for 5 seconds. And then release. So the next, next, let's focus on the muscles in your face. So I'm going to ask that you squeeze your eyes shut and clench your lips together and hold this for 5 seconds. And then release. And you're going to go ahead and repeat. Squeeze your eyes shut and clench your lips together and hold for 5 seconds. And then release. Next, let's focus on the muscles in your jaw. Take a deep breath. Open your mouth as wide as possible and hold this for 5 seconds. And then release. Okay, so the next exercise that I'm going to review with you is meditation through guided imagery. So this is another way to deal with stress, another stress management technique. And it can be done after the progressive muscle relaxation exercise that we just did, because your muscles are hopefully already relaxed. And so this is going to intensify your relaxation. It's going to improve it. So I'm going to ask that you go on a mental journey. And so this exercise will help manage stress and anxiety. So again, I'm going to ask that you continue to make yourself comfortable, that you sit in a comfortable position, and that you take a deep breath, that you breathe in through your nose and exhale through your mouth. And as we're doing this exercise, I'm going to continue, or actually ask you again to continue to keep your eyes closed. I think if you have your eyes closed, it'll help you to relax. I think it will intensify your relaxation. And like I said, your job is to relax. My job is to guide you through that relaxation. So I'm going to ask that you imagine yourself on a beautiful beach. It is a warm, sunny day. Imagine yourself looking up at the bright blue sky. You can see 3 seagulls flying in the sky, and they're chirping. You can also see white clouds floating in the sky. You can see the bright golden sun in the bright blue sky, and you feel the sun warming your body. You can feel a gentle breeze on your face and the soft golden sand beneath your feet. You see yourself beginning to walk along the sand. You look out at the blue waters of the ocean, and you see the calming waves hitting the sand. As you walk along the golden sand, you see something shiny in front of you. It is a silver colored shell. You pick this up and hold it in your hand. As you hold the shell, you can see all of the many other colors in it as well. These are your favorite colors. As you continue to walk on the beach, you feel as though you have left your worries and stress behind. You continue to walk on the sand and feel at peace with your environment. You experience feelings of calm and relaxation. As you continue walking on this serene and tranquil beach, realize that you can return to this peaceful place whenever you like. All you need to do is take this mental journey. So when you are ready to leave this peaceful place, you can slowly open your eyes and then end this meditation. So hopefully these exercises helped you to relax. And I wanted to just remind you, if you have questions, you can put them in the chat, and then I can review them when I'm done, which is very shortly. These are the references that I used for my presentation, and this is my contact information, my phone number, our fax number, and my email address. So my number is 872-2513. That's my direct line. And my email address is soniarg@southtexascollege.edu. And so thank you all for attending my workshop. I hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you so much, Sonia.
You're welcome. I hope you all enjoyed the workshop.
So we have many questions. We have that we have gathered here, so we will be answering these questions, and I will join you in in answering some of these questions. Our students are very intrigued with stress, how is affecting their lives. Okay. Okay. Maybe we can stop if you like to everyone, the contact information here, you can reach out, especially if you're a student. South Texas College's counseling is available. Okay. Now, okay, thank you. So we have some intrigue questions here. For example, Jesus Gomez would like to ask, how does stress affect, well, you went through the study habits, but also how does it affect our ethic or work ethic, and how we actually make decisions in study, in school, and in our work environment?
Can you repeat that one more time, please?
Of course. So he's asking, how does stress can affect your work ethic, and your study ethic, and making decisions, and things like that, and can it affect?
Okay. And yeah, I think that stress can make it difficult for a student, or just anyone in general that's trying to reach their goal. Like if they're trying to pass a class, or they're trying to reach, fulfill a task at their job. If they're stressed, it's going to be more difficult, I think, to meet that goal, because of course, like we talked about, how stress affects the body and the mind as well. Like it creates distractions, and it makes it more difficult to focus, and it can, like we said, lead to illnesses and stress, and well, of course, stress and anxiety, which is just going to make it more difficult for a person to achieve what they're trying to achieve. I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I saw a lot of questions in students saying what, and I wanted to mention this as a side note. We a lot of a lot of people are asking if some of these tips that Sonia is sharing with us do not work. When do they feel that they need to seek either medication or help? I also wanted to point out, the speaker series had a talk before, and it's available in our YouTube channel, about anxiety and how it actually, how to manage anxiety, since there is sort of a link there.
Yes.
um, and I wanted to, that talk is a little bit more targeted to mental health, and I know that a lot of our audience are worried and are feeling this stress, and are going through mental health issues, symptoms, all of that. So I wanted to just kind of give a little bit light into all those comments and questions from our audience that say, when is it time to seek? and and I think, if Sonia agrees, when you see that it is affecting your daily life, your activities, how you socialize, how you're handling your work, your studies, then it's time to seek help. And it doesn't necessarily, what do you think, Sonia? It doesn't necessarily mean straight to medication.
Exactly. Yes, definitely. I totally agree with what you're saying. Once it starts affecting your life and your ability to, function, then that's when I think it's very important to seek help. And again, we're available to help um, with counseling services. We provide that to students, and so students are definitely welcome to, call us or send us an email, reach out to us, and we'll be happy to work with you. There's also private counselors in the community. There's a program that's called Tropical Texas Behavioral Center for people that don't have insurance, that need don't have the resources to pay for those types of services. And if students or really anyone in the community would like that information, they can call us or email us, and we can give them their contact information, and we can refer them to those programs that can help them.
Yes, actually, our speaker was from Tropical.
Oh yes, it's a very good program. We refer a lot of our students over there. So
Yes, it's good to be involved with, in the valley, to have all contacts with all these programs. So I have a question for you. Um, Annabelle Martinez says, how many times a day would you recommend doing these exercises to relieve the most stress?
I think anytime that you feel stressed, I think that would be the perfect time to do these exercises. Just go, you listen to your body and listen to how you're feeling, and then that's what I would do.
Okay. And I have I'm gonna jump into answering one of these questions, and I saw more than one, how stress can affect um, short term, long term, even intelligence, if it can affect have an effect. So, as to intelligence, not really directly, but with short term and long term or memory, um, as Sonia pointed out, there are some uh, brain centers that handle and tell your body that you're going through a stressful situation. And this can have an effect on how, like Sonia was expressing, when you're taking a test, you can focus and then you cannot access some of these centers and these things that you actually studied, and it's in your long-term memory, and it may affect your test taking ability, but it doesn't mean that it's affecting your intelligence. And the other one that I saw a lot, and I think a lot of people like to drink coffee. So they're asking if coffee can increase your stress. Um, in the biology aspect, as a biology instructor, I can tell you that it does affect some receptors that will actually increase, and it gets to a point that yes, you can focus a bit and you're more energetic, but there is a curve and it can actually cause even the opposite. You get this drought and this tiredness for after too much exposure. What do you, Sonia? What would you tell? I don't know if you're a coffee drinker. Um, I'm not.
Yeah.
it, those. There was another question with energy drinks, of how they can handle their coffee intake and related to stress.
Yes, no, I agree with what you're saying, and I'm glad you explained that because that how it affects the body, right? And so personally, I don't drink coffee because it doesn't affect me very well. And I mean, I can see how a lot of my family members and friends, people I know, they rely on coffee, and but then thinking back to how it affects our body and ultimately our brain and our ability to function, it's like we have to take that into consideration, and it can end up leading to more stress for us.
I have a question here that stating, have you seen a difference, significant difference between people that have a job and that don't, with an increase in stress in these times that we're going through?
mm, I guess it's just the way I've, like, with the students I've worked with, it hasn't really made a difference as to whether or not they've made a job or that they have a job, as to how they're dealing with stress or how stressed they're feeling. I think their perception of things that they're going through, or their the way that they see things, I think that has more of an impact than whether they have a job or not, as to how they're feeling regarding stress. Like um, if they feel like very stressed, then I feel like then that's when it can really affect them negatively. And if they don't have the support that they need, or that also can affect them as well. So it really, whether they have a job or not, I haven't really seen that as a factor as far as affecting their stress level.
Okay. I have a question for you that is from Georgina Villanueva. How does visual imagery help relieve stress?
So, so the mind is very powerful. It's a very powerful instrument, and like I was saying earlier, the way that we see things, it affects us psychologically, physically, physiologically, and so if we're able to, like when we're feeling stressed, imagine, take a step back from the stressful situation and just go away mentally, like on a nice mental journey of meditation, imagining yourself in a peaceful environment. It can be whatever you like, whatever I covered the beach because that's something that I like. That relieves stress for me. But whatever environment um, is calming to you, taking a mental journey to that place is helpful, even for just, you know, a break that you may have, like 5 or 10 minutes, just a little, taking a nice little mental break, I think helps.
Okay. Um, I saw some a question and I found it very interesting. How to someone asked um, how to handle stress. Well, first, someone asked if children can experience stress and how to handle stress with their kids. So I bet you've you've encountered some students that work, study, and have dependents, right? Um, what would you recommend for to them on how to handle their dependents or their children?
Yes, I can see how it would be very stressful during this time for kids, because they may not understand, like, say, with the pandemic that's going on, they may not understand what's going on really, and they don't know maybe how to deal with the stress that they're experiencing. Um, like I'll give you an example. Like my son, for example, he um, he enjoys going to school. He really likes being around other people, and so when the pandemic came about, he he was just very not doing well with the stress of not being able to see his friends. It was his senior year of high school. He didn't get to go to his prom. You know, it was just very stressful. And so I would say, with maybe others that may be going through that, like where they see their children going through stress, it's okay for them to get help. We can talk to them as parents, but then there's resources in the community also, and even the school, like there's school counselors that can talk to them, and that's something that the school counselor talked to my son. There was an LPC that works with the school that provided him with some counseling. So that's, I think if parents are, if we see that children are experiencing stress, seeking help is good. I think it's a good idea.
Um, something that I wanted to jump into this question. I saw a lot of our audience asking about panic attacks, and I wanted to bring the I guess also definitely for you to watch as well our other, which is in our YouTube channel, about anxiety, because panic attacks can be brought by anything. It can be brought by stress, but it can also be, there's no necessarily a straight out reason to experience a panic attack. And people that actually do have a mental illness, or even are going through these symptoms, may experience a panic attack. So even though there is no straight reason of why we suffer a panic attack, like it's not necessarily, we could be going through a stressful time and not necessarily experience a panic attack, and all of a sudden you do have some patients that they are doing something totally routine and they experience a panic attack, and it could be related to a diagnosis, or it cannot. So I wanted to also kind of point that out, um, and bringing with that, there was another question that asked if someone can be genetically prone to stress. And to stress, there is no evidence for that. To anxiety disorders, yes. So there is a distinction here between when we're talking about stress, something, as Sonia pointed out, that we have through evolution, we it's normal. It is actually, there is some good behind it, as you pointed out. It's our fight or flight. It's part of, we should experience to be able to survive. But anxiety disorders can be genetic. We can be genetically prone, and through anxiety disorders, stress can be a factor that makes it the symptoms a little worse. So that's something a lot of the audience are asking and mentioning. And however, Sonia, have you seen, or have you had anyone coming with you to you, and these techniques, can they help them in a situation similar to a panic attack? Can they help them ground themselves and be able to get out of that stressful and that incident of a panic attack?
I can see how that can, those exercises that I reviewed, how they can help someone who's having a high level of anxiety that they're experiencing. I can see how the deep breathing, definitely would help, to manage to decrease the anxiety, and then and focusing on something other than what's causing them anxiety, like, like the imagery, you know, maybe doing a relaxation exercise like that with them, with doing some meditation, I think would be helpful.
Another question, and it's a little because others have been asking as well. Are there natural ways, other than these exercises? I guess the student is asking if there are certain natural, either supplements or things that they can take that help with stress, not coffee. Other things. Do you recommend a certain type of, either to drink or to have a specific diet to for people that are experiencing a lot of stress?
So some of I've done a little bit of research on anxiety, because I do a workshop on anxiety, managing anxiety. And so what I've read is that um, sometimes, like, even like tea, like a warm tea, like chamomile, I've heard, is helpful. And just, mm, I don't know, just, caffeine, maybe not at night. It's because it's going to affect a person's, I mean, it can affect their ability to sleep. I think like trying to get a good night's rest, trying to follow a routine, I think is helpful. Like a healthy routine where a person's eating healthy and having some exercise in their life and some activity like productive activity that's helpful. I think those are all helpful as far as like managing anxiety and stress.
Okay. So I have some last questions, and these I waited to the end because they're a little bit more towards the SCC programs. So Jade is asking, how long will the program be in place? I guess, and this question came at the beginning when you were showing some of the workshops and the programs that SCC offers. How long will they be in place? Is every semester, or it could change?
So, well, our workshops we offer them every semester, fall, spring, and summer, and then our wellness Wednesdays are from March 13th through April the 28th, and they're from 12 to 1. And our support group is going on at this time. It's every semester that we have that available for our students. The counseling services that we offer, they are, throughout, we work throughout the year, so they're available throughout the year, except when the college is closed, like on holidays or, spring break, just, those short breaks that we have. But otherwise, we're available, to provide assistance to students. And so, those are the services that we offer and our availability.
Okay. And these are available for all STC students, traditional, dual enrollment. Do they need to um, be with their guardian, or they can have access to these counseling alone,
Okay.
especially for dual enrollment?
Dual enrollment. Okay, I'm gonna have to get back to you on that.
Okay.
But yeah, yeah, I'm gonna have to get back to you on that.
Okay. Or at least you can probably your department can guide them to where they can get help.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, good. So thank you so much, Sonia, for joining us today, and talking about stress. We are all experiencing stress, and we want to give our audience all the techniques that they can use that are reliable, that could help them in these tough times. We're going through tough times. It's a tough year online. Hurricanes, winter storms, everything together. Working from home, having kids at home, everything. So we want to be able to bring this to our community, so they can have their tools, and also remember what they have available at the college, and also in the community. As I mentioned, and as Sonia mentioned, there are other programs in our community that are there to help us to get through these tough times, and we will. So thank you so much for joining us.
Sure.
And
Thank you for
I
inviting me.
want to tell everyone that to please join in and 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 subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can know for our next speaker events. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.